Thanks for joining me on this journey of joy, grief, and authenticity. My name is Hilarie Houghton, and in today's episode, I want to talk specifically to our grieving mothers out there who have lost a tiny baby. And I want to talk specifically about what we're supposed to do with our hands. What on earth are we supposed to do with our hands after we lose our baby? This is something that I have been fighting and trying to come to terms with for 8 months now. Our daughter, Hollis Olivia Houghton, was born in May with a fatal genetic disorder, and she fought for 6 long days, and I held her for as long as I could during those 6 days. And in the end, I found myself walking around without a baby and without anything to do with my hands. Specifically, I think about the 9 months that I had her in my stomach. And as a pregnant woman, I was walking around all the time touching my stomach, and you couldn't hardly help yourself. It was just there, and in the end, it was so big. It was a natural place to put your hands. So for months, I had been touching my stomach. And then when Hollis arrived, I was holding her. I was holding her as much as I possibly could, and I had the weight of her body on my chest. And when I no longer had that, I felt incomplete, and I felt awkward, and I didn't know what to do again. I didn't know what to do with my hands. I felt awkward all the time. I still do sometimes, mostly whenever I'm standing in church or standing somewhere where I feel maybe a little bit more vulnerable. After Hollis's death, I had a lot of long nights. I'm sure a lot of other mothers out there can relate to this. It's really interesting because people say after you have a baby, you don't get any sleep. And I'm sure that is true. Whenever you have a really healthy baby, they're keeping you awake all night. And I thought it was really ironic that I was up all night without a baby. Just such a surprise. I had no idea that I would be so exhausted. I didn't know that grief could exhaust you like it does. Our 7-year-old Labrador, Max, had been with us since he was a puppy. We loved him to death. And after Hollis died, we kept saying to ourselves, well, at least we have Max. What would we do if we didn't have Max? At least we have Max. He had gotten sick and had swallowed a rock while we had been at the hospital that week with Hollis, and he'd gotten really sick, and he died 2 weeks after Hollis died. And that was so difficult. And that made the night so much longer. He was a huge dog, but he slept in the bed with us. And so we really missed him, and especially at night. And this is where I get authentic with all of you, because I start to divulge information that is humbling, to say the least. But I remember coming into this room, and it was such a peaceful room. It still is. We love it. And I was looking for some comfort and some peace. And I found this yellow lab that looks a whole lot like our yellow lab, Max. And we had been given it by my colleague, Margaret. Thank you, Margaret. You'll never know how much this stuffed animal means to me. That night, I took this dog and I took it back to bed with me. And it was comforting because it reminded me of Max, but it also reminded me of Hollis. And I had something to hold on to, and I had something to do with my hands. Later on, I found out that this is actually really common. It's not crazy, although it feels a little crazy. But there is a ministry actually that does this called Molly Bear. And a woman lost her daughter Molly, and she started putting together these bears, but these are weighted bears that actually are the weight of a newborn. And so you can order one for someone you love whenever they experience a loss like this. And I thought it was so beautiful. I love that. And I loved the affirmation that it gave me that I wasn't crazy. So I've continued to be challenged by this idea that my hands feel so empty and I don't know what to do with my hands. And so I decided to dig in. I started thinking about doing this as a vlog topic and really started to look at, well, what does the Bible say? One of my favorite verses in all of this was Proverbs 31:20. And it says that she opens her hands to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. And I love that. I love that it gives me something important to do to help those in need and to reach your hands out to them. And I'm taking it very literally because right now I need to take it really literally. I need that. All throughout the Bible, it talks about clapping your hands for the Lord, rejoicing for his goodness, and praising him, and lifting your hands to worship him. And whenever I start to feel a little awkward, I remember what I am called to do and the person that Christ has called me to be, and that involves doing something important with my hands. I also like to think that that's what this vlog is, me doing something important with my hands. Thanks for joining me today for this especially vulnerable and authentic episode. And I hope that if you are in the process of grieving, especially grieving that of a child, I hope that you are really looking into ways that you can do good things with your hands. And if they feel empty right now, it's okay. And hopefully you can put your hands to good use somehow.